I went and saw The Founder last week. And I've been thinking about it off and on since, which is usually a good sign for a movie. Ultimately, it was kind of a different movie experience. My review feelings are mixed on the movie as a whole. Excuse me. Excuse me. The problem I have with, for those of you who might not know, The Founder is a movie about more or less the creation of the McDonald's franchise. As the movie starts, the original McDonald's restaurant already exists. So in this case, the movie is about the growing of that franchise into becoming what it is today. So, whenever a movie is based on true events, I'm always a little nervous because I know that not everything in the movie is going to be 100% factual. That's just... Then it would be a documentary, and that's not what this is. This is a based on true events story about what happened. So, I like and hate that kind of movie because, on the one hand, you do learn a lot. But then on the other hand, you don't know how much of what you learned is strictly true. So, for the purposes of this review, this all comes with the caveat of, at least that's what the movie said. And I'm not curious enough about McDonald's to go and do my own research afterwards. So, my entire knowledge of the events portrayed in this movie comes from this movie. And so, where the movie is inaccurate, so are my facts. It's Michael Keaton, who I'm glad to see is working again. Birdman, which was fantastic. Birdman really gave his career the boost it deserved, so it's nice to see him working again. Michael Keaton plays the guy who encounters the McDonald's, who invented their first restaurant, and he's the guy who makes the whole franchise thing work. And so he is the main character of the movie. It focuses on him and how he gets it to work. I found the whole movie very interesting. Well acted, well written, well portrayed. Linda Cardellini shows up as a character in the movie, and can I just say, I adore Linda Cardellini. I liked her all the way back in Freaks and Geeks, and she has aged phenomenally well. Which is not to say she's not like, oh God, what's her name? Morgan Fairchild, who seemed to stop aging when she hit 30. Linda Cardellini is definitely aging, but she's aging very well. I am extremely comfortable with how she carries her age. It works. And even in this movie, where she's playing a part that isn't necessarily laudable, and whether or not it is laudable is really kind of a matter of taste in terms of what her character ends up doing. I could see some people having no problem with her character and other people being bothered by her character. But so even when she's playing a questionable character like this, she manages to exude a warmth and comfort. It's just, I like Linda Cardellini. I'm always happy when she shows up in something. I was thrilled when she showed up as Hawkeye's wife in the Avengers. That made me happy. It was like, oh hey, Hawkeye's got a wife and he's got a good one. Nice. Nick Offerman does a really good job playing a more serious character. Obviously, very few people can display disgruntled as well as Nick Offerman. He does disgruntled better than any actor currently alive. But it's not his Parks and Rec character. It is serious. There's not a lot of comedy coming out of his character, and he does it very well. My only real complaint about the movie, and I'm not even sure it's a full-fledged complaint, is that, and I guess spoiler alert, I suppose, the business dealings between Michael Keaton's character and the McDonald's brothers start to take a turn. They end up not getting along in the process, and that's as far as I'll go in describing that. And the problem is, by the time the plot takes that twist, you no longer have a character to root for. And that's not, strictly speaking, that's not necessarily a problem, especially in the context of this story is based on true events. Well, sometimes in real history, you don't always have heroes. And so I'm not saying it's bad that there's nobody to root for in this movie. I'm saying it's interesting. Because now you're watching the movie, and sure, you want to see how the story ends and what happens to who. But you're not rooting for anybody. You're not hoping one person comes out ahead of the other. Michael Keaton's character turns out not to be such a nice guy, both professionally and personally. So you don't really want him to win. But the McDonalds aren't the nicest characters almost from the beginning. They had a great vision, but they weren't good business partners from the start. So you're not really rooting for them at the beginning. And then at the end you're not really rooting for Michael Keaton. Which by default means you're kind of rooting for them. But no, because you weren't rooting for them at the beginning. So it's an odd experience that I'm not sure I liked or hated. It just was. Yeah, that's the thing I keep coming back to, is it was a story without a hero. But real life doesn't always have heroes, so that's okay. And again, that feeds back into how true was it? If the movie is 100% accurate, then good job. Good job having a story without heroes because you stayed true to the plot. If the facts were tweaked, though, why weren't they tweaked in the direction of giving us somebody to root for? And I know some of the facts must be tweaked because that's how these movies always are made. So that's just my internal debate at the movie. It was fascinating to learn the history of what is now a cultural icon. Really, for me, the most interesting part was learning what life was like before McDonald's. Learning what restaurants were like, fast food restaurants were like, before there was such a thing as fast food. When everything was more like Sonic, but still not fast food. It was an interesting peek into society at that time. That probably was the most interesting part for me. The writing was good, the performances were good, the story was good. If you're a fan of... This is not your mainstream popcorn munching kind of movie. This is a deeper, slower, less dramatic film. This I've addressed before. I did graduate from film school, but I'm a film school student who also enjoys going to see, Iron Man. So when I approach a movie, I can approach it from either side. This definitely appeals more to the indie film school student kind of vibe, right? Not so much the fun action, light on story kind of thing. So if a slower, dramatic, based on a true story kind of movie is more your jam, this is an excellent example of that genre. In fact, I'll probably see this with my mother one day. My mother loves stuff that's based on true stories, and she loves period pieces, and she doesn't like, for the most part, sci-fi or fantasy or action. So I will probably share this with my mother because I wouldn't mind watching it again and she would enjoy it. Of course, afterwards, she's inevitably going to say, so how much of that was true? And I'm going to say, oh. Because while it was fascinating, it wasn't fascinating enough for me to sit down and do research. So there you go. Just there's another review for you. Based on this, you know whether or not you want to go see it. So, I'll see you guys next time.